Eric Nix was the A&R at the time. He heard my music and he loved it. And he went to Chris Lighty. The phrase, he went down the hall with the music. And Chris said, nah, you know, they got this guy Eminem over there. They're getting ready to do big things with him. I'm not really into the white rapper thing and all that. No, I'm not into it. And Eric said, I'm trying to tell you, this kid is, I'm trying to tell you. And he said to me, he said to Eric, you tell the kid to bring back a hit, and then we'll talk about it. They listened to the music. They were very impressed with my skills, but they didn't think I had the hit. I had a record on there called Forget About It. It wasn't the most commercial record. I was really going in. And they were like, Eric came back down the hall and said, that Forget About It record you got, if you could change it up and make it more for everybody, I'm telling you, I'll jump on this fucking guy's desk. Because right now he's like not hearing it, but you know, he might hear it. You know, I think I got him. All right, cool. Me and Calogero, his real name, we went to the studio. We made that record that night. We came back the next day. And then Chris Lighty came down. They actually took me and brought me into his office. And he met me. And Chris said to me, so you think you got what it takes to, you know, be a Violator? I said, yeah. I just came back from Cancun. I was out there 33 days with DJ Scribbles, hosting all the parties. And I seen Eminem out there. I met him before he took off when he was on the launching pad. We had a nice vibe. Me, him, Paul Rosenberg. I said, yeah, I'm ready. He said, spit something. Now, I could have spit anything for this guy. Any of my rhymes of me talking about being the greatest thing, or any of my rhymes about anything to impress him. But what I chose to do was I spit a rhyme for him about all the Italian things everybody does on a regular basis. From your slice of pizza, to what you have on your feet, to what you drive, to this and that. And I really freaked it because I was targeting hood people. The Italian things that the hood people have, that they like, things that they can relate to. And I hit him with that verse, and he was like, yeah, I mean, and then before he could even finish his sentence, Eric was jumping all over the place like Jerry Maguire. And I got my deal, and he gave me a very nice, high-profile recording contract. I was actually kind of feeling like I was famous before I even got to leak a song out, just when he put his arm around me. He didn't hand me a contract, just offered me a deal, left it to the point where the attorneys were going to go back and forth, and he said to me, when you're hot, you're hot. And I answer the phone. When you're not, you're not. And I don't answer the phone. He said this in the first time I met him. This isn't about friends. It's about business. Two things that he told me before the negotiation started. From that moment on, I was signed to Violator, Loud Records, Sony. From that moment on, the budget opened up. And from that moment on, every day I was around my favorite rappers and my favorite people in the industry. The in crowd, the inner loop, what they called it back in the days. I was in the loop, man. I made it to like superstardom, man. Not commercial success, superstardom, but I made it in the gate. And from there, things like Forget About It went on to the Battle of the Streets with DJ Clue, who brought me to the to the radio community. Battle of the Streets beat everyone that went against 3 nights in a row and went into the Hall of Fame. I was the first artist other than Jay-Z to go into the Hall of Fame. That was with Forget About It. Where I'm from was all over the street. I was getting praised, man. I couldn't believe, and I was scared that where I'm from was cheesy. But I couldn't believe that I was getting praise over it from the people that I thought were gonna think it was cheesy. They loved it the most. People in jail, people in the hip hop community. You know, Busta was immediately my guy. I don't want to say he was the guy that jumped like a mascot or nothing like that, but in a way he was. He was always telling Chris, good move, Chris, Joe's this, Joe's that. Take him with me. I went everywhere with Busta every day for 2 years, everywhere. I was with him every day for over 2 years. Everywhere he went, except for when he was way the fuck out there doing his thing. But we were in communications every other day. It was honestly the best time of my life. But Chris manages artists, so he has artists in all different record companies. I was on Loud, so when Loud folded, me, Mobb Deep, and I think a couple other people were now stranded with no, basically, record deal or distribution. No one was scared because they knew Chris was going to get them into the right situation. I was, because I felt like I was growing hot and getting hot. I was on the radio. I was starting to be on TV. I felt like people were really liking my music, asking for me. The phones were going nuts. Things were great. And I couldn't believe that everything I ever wanted was actually translating. It was happening. People were saying I was so talented lyrically and I had potential to be the best. And even Jay-Z said I was money in the bank. And Nas came to, Chris Lighty brought Nas to visit me in the studio. You know, brought him up there with, you know, just to meet me. You know what I mean? Chris Lighty did a lot of great things for me, man. I was young and I was crazy and I wanted to see things happen and I didn't understand patience, and which led to me ultimately when Chris, believe me, there was a lot of times that he said he was going to do something that necessarily didn't happen, but there was a lot of things he said he was going to do that he did do. But me, I was only looking at the negative things, and I was in a rush to blow up, and so I ended up doing a diss where I dissed Chris. I didn't diss him disrespectfully. As a matter of fact, just to show you, in the line I said, this ain't beef. I would never pull a tech from my waist. You're on breach. I just want to see the egg on your face. And everybody was telling me, come over here, Joe. I don't want to say no names, but everybody you could want to be signed to was telling me to go to them. So I was thinking, I had no record deal. I lost, I wasn't allowed no more. And Chris really couldn't, I didn't understand that he couldn't pay attention to me because he had artists that he already made millions of dollars with and already had branded that he had to land new distribution. I was in a line and didn't know it. And so it's a shame that he said that, Thursday I'll be able to do this, but he didn't know Wednesday the record company was going to fold. I was impatient. My diss ultimately led to Chris being so disappointed that he actually let me go. He said, you want to get out? You can get out. And being that Loud Records folded, my very large budget was able to be a write-off instead of a number over my head that was going to cost to, if you wanted to sign JoJo Pellegrino, you would have had to pay that number back that Chris spent and then give me a record deal on top of it. The game wasn't even digital yet. Things were changing. Things like $1 Million videos and all that other stuff were already breaking down and it was already getting raw. You know what I mean? Ultimately, that diss record that I put out led to, the end of the relationship between me and Violator. I don't live with regrets, but if there's anything that I do regret, it's that. And it's not because I lost my situation, and it's not because I didn't get to do what it is I wanted to do. It's because I misunderstood someone's actions towards me. I'm talking about Chris. I was upset in myself. Everything that happens in life, no matter what it is, if I walk outside and get hit by a plane, I should have looked up. Everything that happens to you is your fault. And I did not grasp that yet. And I wasn't living by that. I was living by, I'm the greatest, and everyone tells me I'm the greatest, and everyone wants to fuck with me, and I'm just this, and I'm this and that. And I was impatient, and I drove recklessly, and I crashed. The last encounter I had with Chris Lighty was when 50 Cent was doing a 5-borough tour. He was coming to Staten Island. And they picked a spot that was right down the block from where I grew up, where my mom's house is. And I said, you know what? I was always cool with still Eric Nix, the guy who signed me. I always had massive love for James Cruz, the guy who really put me out there. These are the guys I have to credit for giving me the name, whatever name I have. I still have people giving me $1,000 here, $1,000 there for features and shows and everything, and it really comes from still having my their hand mark on my shoulder. I know I earned a lot of it myself, but in this world you see how, like right now, I'm working to be everything I can in the music industry. Tomorrow it could change. I could be the biggest thing out. Everybody could love me just because Rick Ross put his arm around me. Shit like that. You just seen it happen with Meek Mills. We've seen it happen a million times. So my last encounter with Chris was when 50 came to the neighborhood to perform. The police were out there so fucking deep because I overheard the police saying, the Staten Island Wu-Tang, they thought there might be an incident. Somebody from the other side of the island trying to get at 50. So they picked the safest spot for him to perform. There's plenty of places to perform. He performed in a bar that doesn't fit more than 70 people in my neighborhood. Just so they could say that they were there, they did it, and that was it. Safe place, right down the block from where I live. Not Park Hill or Stapleton, where even the cops, if they did want to get at 50 Cent, even the cops could stop them. They would have been following his fucking convoy, throwing things. It would have been a different story. Shout out 50 Cent, by the way. So I was standing there and noticing the owner of the club telling Chris, I didn't even want you here. The police picked that place for them to be. I didn't even want you here. Back to that way I was telling you about my neighborhood. I didn't ask for you to fucking be here. Why don't you get in your truck, get the fuck out of here? The owner was telling Chris Lighty. And 50 Banks and Yayo were just standing with their backs like against the wall in this very tight situation to go into the, they wanted to know, are we going to perform or not? And when I saw that, I stood up, I went over there and I said, yo, you know who you're talking to? Right to Chris Lighty like that. And Chris looked at me and he was like, this guy, man, this guy. What's up? And I was like, well, Chris, I called the Violator office and they gave me a bunch of tickets and they offered me a car to come here, but it was right down the block from where I'm at. So I'm here, man. Yo, don't pay no attention to this guy. Go in there and do your thing. And he stood there talking to me and I said, Chris, I hope that there's no bad blood between us. I was young and crazy and I would never disrespect you personally. You're a very important person in my life and a landmark in my life, no matter what comes out of it. I am very, I realize who you are and what you did for me. And I hope you didn't take it the wrong way. He said, no, not at all. He said exact words, Joe, everybody gets a turn. Everybody gets a turn. See, it's 2 Chainz's turn. There was a time when 2 Chainz was sitting there thinking, what the fuck am I going to do? I'm signed to Ludacris. He's the biggest thing out there and no one cares about it. You know, now he's the guy everyone talks about. Everyone does get a turn. I didn't know that neither. You know, when I start to see that, things that he told me years in advance, I start to see everyone does get a turn. And he said, Joe, there's plenty of room for you and your talents in the music industry. I cannot revisit the project because it was a stressful time in my career. I said, no doubt, Chris. And then right from there, he went to go back in the club with 50, Yayo and them, and it turned into a shoving match between the owner and Chris. And when that happened, a bigger convoy than 50s in the same type of trucks pulled up, all Suburbans. Guys in big boxy suits with little round gold badges here and things like this came out. It was the hip-hop unit. They approached Chris, yo, everything all right, everything all right. They told the cops, back up, all that, this and that. Hey, everything all right? Chris said to them, I was standing right there. Hey, how's your wife? Yeah, they were talking back and forth. And the guy said, we're going to go in there, bang this thing out, and we're going to get out. They weren't there to harass Chris. They were to make sure everything was good and nothing was going to happen because they think that there's a drama between Wu-Tang and 50 because of something back in the days. And they know that Wu-Tang doesn't fuck around, period. You know what I mean? So you should get the cops and everybody out if there was an issue. So they went in, they did the show. I went inside, it was a great show, and they left. And before they left, I said, yo, Chris, I'll see you later, man. He said, no doubt, Joe, see you later. And he walked away, and that was it. That was the last time I seen Chris. That wasn't the last encounter when I was signed to him, but that was the last time I seen him. I just couldn't believe I go on Twitter. I woke up one morning, I went on Twitter, and I seen this guy, rest in peace, Chris Lighty. I'm like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? And I started looking, and I'm like, that's not gonna be real. I get on the phone with my man Lofi, who also knows Chris, and Lofi's like, I don't think he's dead, but I think he might be. I don't think, you know, so I'm like, you know, whatever, you know, I don't know, maybe it's not real or whatever. And then Lofi called me back a couple minutes later. He called Mona Scott. Mona Scott's also a friend of mine. He called Mona Scott, and Mona Scott, solidified that Chris Lighty is dead, that he killed himself. And Lofi called me back and told me, and I ain't even gonna front. I immediately, I was holding nunchucks. I was playing with nunchucks with my son. I just dropped the nunchucks, I walked off, and I ain't gonna front, I cried. I cried hard, too, for him. I couldn't believe it. It was a really weird feeling because even if we weren't on the best terms, people say all sorts of things, they stretch the truth out. Chris was blackballing you. No, he wasn't. It's the people in the industry, on the inner loop, looked at it and said, you know what, if it didn't work with Chris, why would I touch it? He wasn't blackballing me. I know so much now that I'm older. Yeah, there's always room for speculation and all that, but it hurt me bad when I heard that he died. It really upset me. It hurt me as a fan of hip-hop because that man is literally hip-hop on the East Coast. Every rapper goes to him because before they get in the game, they want to have him on their side. He don't tap dance for the guys with the $100 million checks. He doesn't get in front of the camera. He doesn't dance. He doesn't do anything. And he goes in and he gets the job done. That's what he does. And he protects the people that are around him. And, and for hip-hop, a lot of your favorite rappers you didn't know were managed by Chris. I'd like to know what type of effect this is going to have. I know right now for the guys who have that money, that keep cutting these money out to the Puff Daddies and the Khaled's and the people in the world, I know that they no longer have to worry about somebody with that type of talent coming in there and getting whatever they want. I think he was definitely the last of a breed, a champion, bro. And the fact that he's dead as a fan of hip-hop hurt me and upset me. The fact that, like I said, no matter if people thought we were on good terms or bad terms, the fact that, the three people that had the most influence on me in my life, I have to honestly say, my mother and my father, and they loved me more than life itself, and I loved them back that way, and Chris Lighty, even if we weren't always cool. The things I learned from him, the memories I have, what he did for my life and for my career, how could I ever forget it? Even if I was #1 right now, signed to some other label, I would still feel a very special place in my heart for Chris. So, I hope he rests in peace. I couldn't believe he killed himself. Sometimes I don't even believe it. I don't know what to think, man. But, the world actually goes on. I think things are going to change because Chris is that guy who, if LL Cool J's licking his lips too much, and everyone says, yo, man, in the beginning it was great, but he's still licking his lips? I don't like that. Chris says, yeah, and guess what? I think I'm going to take him to a chapstick company and get him a whole bunch of money just because how he licks his lips. You know what I mean? That type of animal, it was him, man. He pioneered it. It was him. I mean, he's Puff Daddy's manager. You don't think Puffy can go anywhere and get anything on his own? Maybe he can. But for some strange reason, the guys that he goes to get it from, he thinks they might have an easier time talking with Chris. So Chris was his manager. And Chris took 50 Cent when nobody even wanted to say anything about him. I tried to give 50 Cent money out of my budget right after he got shot. I put a message out for him through Simone, Rock from Helter Skelter's girl at the time, who was working at the front counter, very close to Chris Lighty, working at the receptionist desk. I said, do you have 50 Cent's contact? Yes. Call him. JoJo, we've been calling him. He don't call back. Can you please put the message out that JoJo's reaching out for him? 5 minutes later, JoJo, 50's on the line. What's up, Playboy? Exact lines. Forget about it's a hit. What's going on over there? How come forget about it's not all over the place? That's what he told me. And I said, yo, I'm gonna try and get you this money out of my budget. I think you're the truth, bro. I think you're the best of the best, bro. I can't even front. I went to Chris. I had the whole conversation with him. If you had me and 50 Cent, it'd be like fucking Eminem and like Biggie Smalls or something like that. It'd be amazing, you know. And people were telling me, the guy's a bum, and you could get killed hanging around him. No 50 Cent, no nothing. We don't talk about him. And that's the shape that 50 was in. And the only person that brought him to the promised land, in the middle of all that, Chris Lighty. So Chris is something else, man. You know, he's something else. And he was, and I just hope that his legacy continues through James Cruz and people out there that really get the job done. People that go in there and get the job done, but with the right intent. You know, Chris is a big corporate guy, and all the corporate guys, they come across immediately as snakes and as fucking liars and closet cases and all this other shit. But Chris, knowing that he's not from that background, but he's in that world, I always saw in him, he'd be like that big guy that you can't talk to or look at and everything, but then it would break down and he'll look right in your face as soon as you say something. Like, yo, Chris, man, I'm something emotional or something like that. And he called me sensitive thug, because he thought I was so emotionally involved in everything I did. Sensitive thug, with that smile. And Chris would break down and look at you, and you would see the human being in him, and that he wanted to do the right thing. He did not have to let me go. He let that human being in him let me go. If he was like these other corporate aliens, he wouldn't have let me go. He would have held on to me and kept that price over my head. He let me go because he cared about me, and because he was a human being. He didn't want to create stresses and issues that dragged on for no reason. He was special, bro. And there's nobody else going to be like him. I promise you that. There's nobody else out there will be like him. I just hope that they continue to violate a legacy. See, I'll be a violator for life. It don't matter. That's my, I'm not going to say I'm branded a violator, but not even just violator management, violator of the word. That's what I do. You know, not in a disrespectful manner, but I come through heavy, metaphorically speaking, for this music thing. So I'm a violator off top. That's why they signed me. I'm always going to move that way. I just hope that the legacy continues and that they keep protecting these artists and keep putting them where they want to be out there in the marketplace, getting them that crossover money and getting them, keeping their respect. And no matter what, I'll always love you for what you did for me. And I'll never forget the things you did for me. And still the most valuable things you taught me are the things that I work off every single day. Everybody gets a turn. That's what keeps me going. When you said, when you're hot, they pick up the phone. When you're not, they don't. I'm smart enough to realize that. And the other thing I'll never forget is when he told me that it's not about friends, it's all about business. It's hard, man, because the guy who gives you a record deal and the guys that are around you every day, you love them. They're like your boys, like James Cruz and all them. They were like family to me. I loved them. And then they were out of my life that quick, you know? So those are the three things that he taught me that I will always continue to keep right here as I move throughout this industry. Real talk. Rest in peace, baby Chris.